Hello, dear viewers. Welcome. Once again, I am with you with a new presentation. The topic of my presentation is Bildungsroman. Myself, Professor Meshramkar Suntera, Department of English, J.A.T, Arts, Science and Commerce College for Women, Malegaon. The topic of my presentation is Bildungsroman. Bildungsroman is a type of novel which is concerned with the education, development, and maturing of a young protagonist. Bildungsroman is a literary term describing a formative novel about a protagonist's psychological and moral growth from his young age into adulthood. Bildungsroman novels are generally written in the first person and often feature the name of protagonist directly in the title, such as Emma, Jane Eyre, and David Copperfield. The Bildungsroman literary genre originated in Germany. The German word Bildung means education and the German word Roman means novel. So, Bildungsroman translates to a novel of education or a novel of formation. Bildungsroman is a special kind of novel that focuses on the psychological and moral growth of its main character. Now, this growth is depicted from his or her youth to adulthood. So, this Bildungsroman, this German word, was first introduced by Karl Morgenstern in early 19th century, and it was later popularized by Wilhelm Dilthey in the early 20th century. The popularity of this genre first spread across the European continent and then the entire world. So, if we focus on the definition, it is said that Bildungsroman is a class of novel that depicts and explores the manner in which the protagonist develops morally and psychologically. The German word Bildungsroman means novel of education or novel of formation. Traditionally, the growth occurs according to a pattern. The sensitive, intelligent protagonist leaves home, undergoes stages of conflict and growth. He or she is tested by crisis and love affairs. Finally, finds the best place to use his or her unique talents. Sometimes the protagonist returns home to show how well things turned out. Some Bildungsroman end with the death of the hero, leaving the promise of his life unfulfilled. Traditionally, English novelists complicate the protagonist's battle to establish an individual identity with conflicts from outside the self, whereas German novelists typically concentrate on the internal struggle of the hero. Bildungsroman is a novel that traces the psychological and moral development and maturation of the main character or characters. Sometimes it is referred to as a coming of age story. Usually, this presentation pertains to the protagonist. It can also, however, show the inverse development of the antagonist. Bildungsroman is the name affixed to those novels that concentrate on the development or education of central character. So, as just we have seen, as it has German origin, Bildung means formation or education and Roman means novel. Although the history of Agathon, written by Christoph Martin Wieland, may be the first known example of Bildungsroman. Now, there are various stages in the life of the protagonist. That is emotional loss for the youth, that youth leaves home on a journey, encounters many conflicts. These conflicts may be external, man versus society, or this conflict may be internal, that is, man versus himself. The youth learns, he gets matured, that young adult accepts values of society and the society in turn accepts him. And finally, that adult returns home with new knowledge to benefit his society. Now, the same thing is shown in this picture through this graph, that is emotional loss for the youth. The youth leaves home on journey, encounters many conflicts. That conflict may be external or internal. In external conflict, it is man versus society. Internal means man versus himself. Then youth learns or youth matures, and the young adult accepts the values of society and the society also accepts him, and as an adult person he or she returns home with new knowledge to benefit the society. Now this Bildungsroman is called as coming of age novel also. Coming of age and apprenticeship. As a coming of age novel, it focuses on the main character's apprenticeship. These experiences place the character near older practitioners whose roles as models the character either emulates or rejects. Goethe's Bildungsroman appropriately uses the word apprenticeship. This word apprenticeship is used in its title because one distinguishing factor of this genre is the learning process that brings the protagonist from childhood into adulthood. So apprenticeship means training, and in Bildungsroman the protagonist learns, that protagonist gets some training. So that word apprenticeship is appropriate. The Bildungsroman doesn't just tell a story, it involves the reader in the same process of education and development as the main character. The aim is to affect the reader's personal growth also. However, at some point in the narrative, the reader may be in disagreement with the protagonist. It happens. Sometimes the reader may not agree with the protagonist. Realizing that the hero has made a mistake in judgment, the reader in effect learns from the situation before the protagonist, or the reader compares his or her morality against the moral of the story that the hero eventually learns. Character in the Bildungsroman, that is, the main focus is on one main character. The structure of Bildungsroman is to follow this one character from youth to adulthood. No doubt, there are other characters. These characters exist in the story, but only in roles that have some kind of connection with the protagonist. Means the focus is on the main character. The whole story revolves around the single main character, that is the protagonist. So Bildungsroman is a story of a single individual's growth and development within the context of a defined social order. The growth process at its roots a quest story, and it has been described as an apprenticeship to life and search for meaningful existence within society. To spur the hero or heroine on to his or her journey, some form of loss or discontentment must jar him or her at an early stage away from the home or family setting. So, this loss is must. The process of maturity is long, arduous, and gradual, consisting of repeated clashes between the protagonist's needs and the desires and the views and judgments enforced by an unbending social order. As just I said that J.A.T has appropriately used the word apprenticeship in its title because the focus is on learning process, and this learning process is from childhood into adulthood. And this novel focuses on the main character's apprenticeship. Bildungsroman novel of personal development. It concentrates on spiritual, moral, psychological, or social development and the growth of the protagonist, usually from childhood to maturity. It contains some experiences which define who one is and is to become. Now it's set the past from when they were centered around that young people on the verge of some maturation process. It surrounds an event that awakens one from innocence and removes the veil or sheltered and naive way of seeing the world from one side. Protagonist is faced with some sort of decision or the outcome of which he will have a significant impact on the rest of his or her life. Now, in Bildungsroman, the focus is on decisions or choices. These decisions are put forward in such a way to make one alternative more difficult, but as a sign of growing up, while the other is easy way out that enables the decider to remain within his or her youthful comfort zone. Now, the decisions which the character makes impact the rest of his life. On a grander scale, these decisions may provide valuable information about the broader societal problems and the decisions which his or her culture and society have faced. How later generations have viewed these decisions and outcomes is focused in the novel. Now it reflects nostalgia for the simple past or childhood. It is faced with important choices whether they should conform what society or authority figures expects or whether they ought not to follow their path. Now focus on conventions of Bildungsroman. The protagonist is forced away from his home on a journey. That protagonist undergoes psychological or moral growth. The goal is maturity. There is self discovery. There is conflict with society, and the focus is on grand struggle. Now, this struggle may be between the protagonist and the society, or the struggle may be the protagonist and his inner self. Now, the examples of Bildungsroman: Charles Dickens's Great Expectations, or Julia Alvarez's In the Time of the Butterflies, or Harper Lee's To Kill a Mockingbird, or another example is Louisa May Alcott's Little Women, or as the most famous series, that is J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter, David Copperfield, or Charlotte Bronte's Jane Eyre. These are some examples of Bildungsroman. So, here we have focused on Bildungsroman as a genre of novel. Thank you.